Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
Our second guest today on today's show is a lawyer, writer, politician, and a budding historian. He served as Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State, Nigeria for 4 years. As Attorney General, he led the review of the Criminal Code law and the administration of criminal justice law. He's here to talk about his thought-provoking documentary, Journey of an African Colony, The Making of Nigeria. He is Olasupo Shasore, who also nurses the ambition to run for the office of governor in Lagos State. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, sir. I can see you laughing about that. Are you not?
Anyway, let me start not with the documentary. Let me start with something else. You were Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State for about 4 years, right?
That's right. 2007
to 2011. And before you came on set, we were discussing the relationship between Jeff Sessions and United States President Donald Trump, who wants the Attorney General to be loyal to him. What actually is the role of an Attorney General?
It's a very unique appointment. Your appointer, the minute he appoints you, loses control over you. And that's why we call it sui generis. He is a member of government only to the extent that he serves the people for the government. He's not a government lawyer. He's not the governor's lawyer. He's not the president's lawyer. And it's very easy for top executives to misunderstand the nature of the office of Attorney General, although I think maybe Trump is being mischievous. His loyalty is to the people of the United States of America. That's why the title is actually called Attorney General for Lagos State, or for Nigeria, not Attorney General for the government.
Yeah, but you see in the United States, they've separated it neatly. The Attorney General is called the Attorney General. He's not called Attorney General and Minister of Justice or Justice Secretary.
Very clever.
Now, here in Nigeria, we tend to merge the two lines. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice in Nigeria is a member of cabinet. As Minister of Justice, he's supposed to be exercising delegated authority. Isn't that the problem? Because some people have said in our own case, for commissioners at the state level and the Minister of Justice at the federal level to be independent, the two positions should be separated.
And the sooner it's done, the better. Historically, it wasn't always like that. Dr. Taslim Elias, he was the Attorney General for many years. And I do not believe he ever became a Minister for Justice. With the incursion of the military government and military governments and the need for top-level legal advice is where this habit of the joinder of the offices became very fashionable, and it found its way into our Constitution. I think it's an anomaly of the highest order. When I was in office, I hated the job of Commissioner for Justice. I loved the job of Attorney General, and there is an inherent conflict in both jobs, and one man occupying both positions. In America, they have a United States Attorney General.
Yes.
He's not a minister in the government. And it's a very clever thing to do. And the sooner we revert to normality, the better. I think the justice sector will be better served. I think the people will be better served. And the government of the day can look for their own personal lawyer who will advise them on the ways to get out of trouble and to do things that maybe they don't want the public to know about, where the Attorney General may one day sue them. That's the kind of thing that we should be doing.
So in the light of this, how will you assess the present Attorney General in Nigeria, Abubakar Malami, who has been taking it upon himself to even go to court on behalf of government officials, like the Inspector General?
I really think that he needs to take a closer look at his functions and the powers that he exercises. And it's somewhat forgivable because over the years, the lines have been blurred. Like I've said, the appointing authority actually expects you, if he doesn't understand it properly, to be his own personal lawyer, and it's not correct. So it would be good for all attorneys general across the country to take a close look at how they carry out their functions.
Okay, great. Let's take a look at your documentary. I saw that last night and I was blown away. So you were not a part of the making, but you're a narrator for this documentary, is that correct?
Well, I'm part of the making in the sense of conceptualizing the research, and traveling across the country to have a shot.
Yes.
But when I say a filmmaker, is slightly different nomenclature to my mind. So yeah, I'm part and parcel of the project.
Okay, so tell us what this documentary is all about. It's been making so much waves on social media over the past 6 months, I believe.
Yeah, it was just a teaser that we released.
Yes.
At the time that the teaser was released, we thought that we were closer to release of the documentary itself, but it turns out that we're still a couple of months away.
Okay.
But it's about the making of Nigeria, as the name suggests. It traces the immediate and remote causes of why we are this country, and it starts from 1440 and ends on the 1st of October 1960.
Well, talking about this thought-provoking documentary, Journey of an African Colony, The Making of Nigeria, let's take a look at it.
Lagos, Nigeria. The race course, where many would say the journey of modern-day Nigeria as we know it began. My name is Olasupo Shasore. Along with a gifted team of researchers, I'm going to take you through the timelines of how this great country came to be. Together, we will go back to some big moments in time.
The fury from the air went on and on. Our airmen in technical support of the ground forces took no rest that day.
The British Empire lasted 300 years. At the height of it, they ruled over literally a third of the world's population. So if the crown conceived the idea of a colony, it was executed by the members of parliament. The halls where the Magna Carta, the freedom of justice, the Bill of Rights were conceived and delivered to the world was the very same halls where slavery and colonization was being carried out. December 27th, 1851, the palace of the king was finally destroyed. The first possession in this part of the country then became the Lagos colony. We're fortunate because we have one of the most contemporary diarists of the time, Giambattista Scala. The wretched appearance of this town, destroyed by cannon and fire, made the saddest impression on me. We shall unearth some hidden or suppressed truths. What was the reason behind the war? Why war?
The war was for protection against enemies.
We should learn about the lives of the real people who made history. The Women's War, Ogun Umuwanyi, a war waged by women. The result was devastating. 31 women were killed within one afternoon. Market women were selling in night markets like this at prices that they determined to who they determined to sell to. It was a protest not against only just the price, but government authority. It galvanized people together as they led into 1945. We will go to places that have either been forgotten or avoided. Then together we shall debunk some myths that tell a truly different story of the history of this African giant.
In the 1930s, in fact, Ikoyi was known as the most select residential area in the world.
We will transform not just how you understand this nation to be, but also your understanding of the African continent and the world. Come, let us go on the journey of this African colony.
That was amazing. You know, what stood out most for me was the Aba Women riot. I didn't even know that happened. I've not read that anywhere in the history of Nigeria. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a riot, and
Yes.
it wasn't about women.
What was it about?
It was civil disobedience.
Okay.
It was a very well-crafted protest
Okay.
by women across the eastern province,
Okay.
which in those days ran from as far as Umuahia to Akwa Ibom,
Okay.
present-day Akwa Ibom. So it was a huge expanse of area where women came of the same mind to protest what they considered to be the injustice of the day, which was triggered by a demand for taxation of women, which in their mind meant a double taxation because the men were already paying tax. And the push of the day by the government to to impose tax was driven by the economic realities that the colonial government was facing at the time. But I think they made a total miscalculation, one with Eastern Province and two with the power of women through the network of markets. So I think it got the name in officialdom Aba Women's Riot because of a particular incident that happened in Aba.
Okay.
In fact, not in Aba, on the road approach to Aba, where a car overran two protesting women, and that sparked another life to the protests. In fact, it sparked probably the most deadly attack throughout the 2-month period, the attack in Opogbo town, where 38 women lost their lives in just one afternoon.
You took the story from 1440. What is significant about 1440?
Well, the West African landscape in 1440 was largely borderless, or rather, it didn't have today's borders. And a lot of the area that we now occupy and live in was called Guinea land. Yes, there were empires. The Ghana Empire was making its slow decline and was soon to be replaced by Mali and the other empires were to emerge. But we started from 1440 because that's when the first contact with the Europeans resulted in the extraction of black people from West Africa to Europe, to a place called Portugal. And that experience snowballed into more frequent contact, snowballed into the merchants, led to the slave trade, and then led to the colonial intervention that has shaped our lives and our territories today. So that's why we started from 1440.
Okay.
Yeah, when you say the journey and the making of Nigeria, what's the main theme that that is conditioning your selection of highlights of Nigerian history?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. We use this journey as both a geographical journey because we travel across Nigeria over the span of about 14 months.
Okay.
We covered a lot of ground. We even traveled to England because a lot of our records are in England.
Okay.
So it's actually a journey, but it's also a journey through the timelines that have affected and shaped Nigeria. And along those timelines, we stop at what we've considered to be big moments that have defined Nigeria. Those are not, we don't have a prerogative on what those moments are, but I think from a research point of view, and I led the research, we think we've chosen the big moments that had big impact.
What are those big moments?
Well, the documentary runs for about 3.5 hours. It's going to be done in 6 parts, and we think this is the first of its kind in Nigeria. Those big moments starts with obviously Independence Night, and we go back in time to this first contact in 1440, and then we move on to the slave trade. And it's important to understand Nigeria's slave trade story because it's not something that we are known for. And the Nigerian slave trade story is actually probably the most significant in Africa. And if you think 12.5 million black people were exported out of this continent, and Nigeria had a majority of that, and it's kept very quiet because other people have turned it into tourist destinations.
Yes.
Senegal, Ghana,
yes.
Gambia. And yet the largest contributor was the Bight of Benin and the area that is now called Nigeria. Okay. And then we move slowly into the colonial era.
Yeah, but if the tourism centers are in Ghana, Gambia, Senegal, well, isn't it a reflection of the fact that Nigeria is not investing enough in tourism?
Yes,
absolutely,
it is true.
Absolutely. And we're not investing also in its history, in its identity. It's not just the tourism as a sector. We need to invest in who we are. And I think that's a very powerful tool that we're missing.
Yes.
And the sooner we get that right, the better.
But you know that at the time, history was taken off the curriculum.
It's sad.
I don't know whether they've taken it back now.
As a policy decision, we hear that it has been returned. But before that hits the street, it's still at least 8 years away because now you've lost all the history teachers.
Yes,
you've got to teach the teachers who will then teach the new students. So even if the policy decision has been taken, it's still going to take a while before we get history back into the classroom.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
What point are you at this documentary right now?
We're in post-production.
Okay.
We're hoping that we will be able to get to some sort of release in about 3 months.
Okay.
So we're close to the end. It's been a long journey.
why is it taking so long?
Nigeria is a large country. I mean,
Yes.
and the history is deep. The research was intensive. Some of the places that we had to go to were not really charted places. We tried to stay out of government as much as possible. We're independently funded, and we had to do certain things the harder way than it could be, because we wanted as little interference as possible, and we wanted to be able to tell the story as we saw it.
Okay, so you ran the research process of this documentary.
Yeah.
What was the most mind-blowing moment for you?
Oh dear, that's a difficult one. That's a difficult one. Can I do two?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I would say the one that struck me the most was Iva Valley.
Eva Valley.
Yeah,
That's in Enugu, right?
that's in Enugu.
The Enugu coal mines.
Yeah, that for me was, I still get goosebumps when I think of what happened that day.
Okay.
And I also get upset in the fact that Nigerians don't even know where Iva Valley or what it is and what was significant about that place.
Okay.
This is a place where striking coal miners looking for better welfare were shot down by the police and government of the day.
And why were they shut down?
Because they were protesting. They were
Okay.
protesting for better pay, better working conditions. This is 1949, where the Nigerian native is still thought of as a second-class citizen. It's very painful when I think about that day, and more painful when I think about it not being part of our identity, our national identity. We don't think of ourselves in terms of these people who fought for their civil rights through a very slow, painful, deadly process, an oppressive system called imperial colonialism.
And what was your second one?
The second one was Independence Night,
Okay.
the 30th of September, 1960. That struck me because, you know, when you think about what the promise of Nigeria on that day, we had a national airline called Nigeria Airways, just with 17 aircrafts. With the darling of international travel of the day was a DC-9. We had 17 of them, gleaming aircrafts. Nigeria had 45 million people. It had two well-known universities. We had electricity. We had a dam project that was going to supply at least a quarter of Africa's electricity needs that was coming on stream. It was later to be known as Kainji Dam. The promise of Nigeria on that night was huge. It was the promise of Africa.
Okay.
And that night struck me because we interviewed some eyewitnesses of October 1st, for that night of the 1st of October. Some eyewitnesses who are now 80 years old, who were there. And they tell us of the hope, you know, the Ankara dresses that women had sewn, the feeling that they were now liberated, they were the equals to white people. And the tragedy of where we are now made that night very big on me. And that's my second most important moment.
There's a book by Edwin Matunago, a collection of essays, which is titled The Making and the Unmaking of Nigeria.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so here you are talking about the making of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Does the documentary go far to reflect on the unmaking of Nigeria?
No, we stopped on the 1st of October deliberately because we wanted people to leave with the promise of what could have been. Strangely, that night, Tafawa Balewa, the Prime Minister, said almost prophetically that so much is expected of us. Please don't expect too much from us. And I wonder what he was thinking when he drew back about that promise, because everybody else was certain that this country was going to soar into the skies.
Now you're a lawyer. That's your day job, right?
That's my day job.
But now you are a historian. You've written a book, A Platter of Gold.
Yeah.
You've written another one, Possessed, you know, both historical accounts.
Yeah.
Why history? What's the attraction?
Well, I mean, it started as a love, a hobby, and with research, I got more and more involved in it. Why history? Because I think it's an asset that we seem to be ignoring. Other countries have this ability to convert their identity into a soft power, the power of a country that brings people together that's not tangible, something you can't hold on to. And they invest in that identity. They invest in that collective belief. And that's what makes people go beyond the call of duty. And in Nigeria, we seem to ignore it, we seem to waste it, and in some cases, we cancel it from our national curriculum. So that's what then made me go into it a lot deeper. And it's been a hobby, and we've made some different art forms, like books, and the documentary is another art form of history, and we hope that it allows more people to key into Nigeria's identity, to understand who we are and why we are what we are.
But the politics of identity is one of the major issues in anthropological research. And we have this Professor Mahmoud Mamdani who has written at great length on this subject. But if you look at Nigeria, you see that we are also struggling with it. Do you think that the amalgamation of 1914 was a mistake?
No, I don't. The people who say that often fortified with this expression, Nigeria is a mere geographical expression.
That's Awolowo.
Well, actually, it was Lugard. Actually, Awolowo got that phrase from Lugard. Lugard, in his 1919 report on the report of the amalgamation so far, used that phrase. And but it's popularly identified with Obafemi Awolowo. And I challenge that because there is no country in the world that's not a geographic expression. The whole idea of borders is an artificial thing. It's a social construct that we put in our heads in order to live in a modern environment. So all countries are artificial. What the difference is, countries are kept together by big ideas.
Yes.
It is the big ideas that keep you together and keep you believing in the unity of the country. And sometimes these ideas need to be renewed from time to time.
Well, I'll ask you two quick questions because we'll have to go. The first one, you once argued for a special status for Lagos.
Yeah.
Why a special status for Lagos? Why not a special status for some other place? For Abeokuta, for example.
The special status was a policy decision that we took at the time because of the genuinely unique position of Lagos. Lagos is this metropolis that contained the whole challenge of Nigeria. It contained the entire fabric of Nigerian people. And there was a lot of pressure, there still is a lot of pressure on its infrastructure. There's a lot of pressure on its diversity. And we felt it compelling that Nigeria should invest specially in Lagos because of its antecedents as the former capital of the country and the loss that it had suffered with the removal of that capital status. And yet the burden it continued to carry, being the microcosm of Nigeria, larger than many countries in Africa. And we felt that a special budget process from Nigeria needed to be taken into consideration, not unlike other countries.
You wanted to run for governor in 2015.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't quite work out. Are you going to run again in 2019?
No.
Okay.
No?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
No.
No.
I wanted to ask about your documentary. What platform do you intend to distribute the documentary?
Well, we're talking to, we'd like it to be released terrestrially as much as possible. We'd like as many Nigerians to see it as possible. So we're looking for a Nigerian release to it. And we're all ears.
Good luck with the post-production process, and thank you for coming to the morning show. I'm sure we'll invite you again. There's still a lot that you can talk about.
Absolutely. That's all from Olasupo Shasore. When we return, we'll have Nigeria's foremost actress, Omotola Jalade Ekinde, here to discuss her invitation by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to become a voting member for the Oscars. Stay with us.